So BigToysDirect.com sent me this Mercedes Zetros Ride toy to do a review on. After we did that, I could not just leave it alone. I had to modify it. And this is what I came up with, and I'm sure you guys will like it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to lay down the graphics that I cut for it. We got the graphics, so I messed around with it a little bit to change it up a little bit. I didn't want it to look too crazy or too similar to the Raptor one, but I do love the whole side thing on the Raptor, so this kind of mud splat deal looks pretty cool on here. Then I cut the off-road recovery rescue decal. Done with the graphics. Testing all the police lights right now, or the emergency lights that I'm putting in there. And tomorrow morning, that's what we're doing. We're ripping this thing apart, and I'm gonna start throwing those lights in there and trying to figure out where I'm gonna mount them. Yesterday I've been playing around where I'm mounting them up, and today's the day I drill a bunch of holes. I'm using some black screws so you don't see the actual screw. There we go. Perfect. All right, so the strobe lights are done. Got my mess cleaned up, and there you go. Looks pretty sweet. So now basically what I have to do is start taking the whole thing apart. I gotta take the windshield out. I gotta figure out how the hood comes out because I need to put the siren underneath the hood. And then I'm gonna have to figure out how to quiet down the siren because it's like a legit loud siren. So I have to figure out how to kill the volume a little bit so it's not too loud for my kid. And then start working on all the wiring. We'll start there and get this thing ripped down. Half an hour trying to figure out which piece allows which piece to come out. Got the hood out, had to take the windshield out, had to take basically the doors off because everything's intertwined. And got the siren mounted up, and I tried to seal it off as best as I could. So here goes the moment of truth. Let's see what it sounds like. Dang, that's still loud. That is still freaking loud. I don't know any other way to make it less loud. This is, I mean, when it was open, it was like ridiculous. So, and it's controlled by one of these little guys, which I think I'm gonna put it on the switch so that I could turn it off somewhere in the back, maybe like put a switch in the back so I could turn it off so it doesn't turn on accidentally and scare the crap out of my kid until maybe she gets used to it. And I guess she's gonna have to wear earplugs when she's driving this thing around, scaring all the neighbors. Maybe I should run like a bead of silicone around it just so like I could seal it some more so it's not as loud. I don't know, but it is loud. Actually, let's see, maybe it's gonna be less loud with the hood on. Test run with the hood on. Still loud. All right, so I'm running my wires for the strobe lights right now, and I drilled a couple of holes here to run them through. I'm also taking out these little LEDs that they got in here, these little cheapies, and I'm replacing them with these 3 watt. I think these are either 3 or 9 watt. Maybe they're 9 watt. I think these are 9 watt Eagle Eye LEDs. So I'm gonna be putting them in there actually even without the reflector, because they'll fit perfectly in here. And the little reflector is like this guy. We don't need this little guy. So I'm gonna put those in and screw them on from the bottom, and that should give us a lot more light. So the lights are in. This is what it looks like. So I ended up using the chrome bezels anyway, because the way that the outside thing sits in here, I did need to use it so they don't pop out. So I just drilled larger holes in them. I took out those factory LEDs and I put these in. So I got a lot of wiring to do, but it's gonna be fun. Not really. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up these LEDs so when they're on, they're solid. But when you turn on all the strobe lights, they're gonna be also strobing back and forth between each other. And what I'm gonna use is this little module right here. It's like a LED strobe controller type of deal that I'm gonna mount up in here. And I'm also using this little guy. I'll try to put the links in description for these things that I'm using. But essentially, this is set up on relays. It's got power source coming in to operate the relays, and then each individual channel is on a remote control. And what happens is it has a normally open and a normally closed connector on here. So what happens is if I, let's say, have it wired up going through the normally open, it's gonna have the LEDs on. As soon as I switch the strobe lights on, then it's gonna power on this box, and the power to the LEDs in the front are gonna go through this box. So I'm using this controller for actually these guys right here, and I'm also installing this little setup on the roof right here. These are like cheap little DRLs. They are pretty bright though. So the way they work is they have a switchback setup in them. They're used like for turn signals and DRL in daylight running lights. So when they're on, they're white. When you turn the turn signal on, they're actually amber. So what's gonna happen is once this little guy turns on, these will automatically switch for the strobe going from white to orange. So they're gonna work as a strobe light as well, unless they're just regularly on. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so this is all sorts of crazy wiring setup that I got right now going on. Basically, headlights and the 2 things up top, the 2 lights up top, they're set up going to this module so that when you turn the lights on, they just turn on. Now, if I want to switch over to, like, let's say strobe lights that I set up on the remote, that basically happens through this box. And this box only controls the grounding. It's super crazy, weird the way it's set up, but this is the way it works. So I got my strobe pattern. If I want to do strobes with it, I can also change the color on the top ones, or I could just go to solid and change the top color. Other 2 buttons are going to be basically for all the rest of the strobe lights. And then as far as the pattern changing on those, that's going to be through this button. So, and the pattern's only going to change if you double click. So that kind of makes it a little more complicated. So it basically is going to have 2 remotes. One remote's going to be for the Siren, and one remote's going to be for the strobe light. The next step is probably 6 hours of wiring the rest of the strobe lights and extending all the wires, putting everything on a switch so that I could turn off this module basically. And so that could be turned off, because that's constantly on and I don't want it to be draining the battery. I want to be able to just switch it off. This was quite the wiring experience. I gotta say, there's a lot of wiring. Crazy setup. Took me forever. I want to say it was 3 hours in total for wiring. And I'm still not 100% done because I still got the main power supply wired up directly to the battery, which I want to put a switch in. But I haven't turned it on yet. And this is the moment of truth. So let's see if it works with the remote. And will it strobe? Yes, it is strobing. Sweet. So now for the main strobe lights. Let's see how if this works. Ready? Here we go. Oh, look at that. Yes, it is working. And they're all in sequence, which is awesome. So I had to get each individual strobe light on the sequence that I want it to be before I hook up the wire that changes the sequence. Sorry about the deflated bouncy house in the background, but anyhow, so this channel now in turn is supposed to change the strobe pattern. So let's see if that works. Ready? There we go. Yes, it's awesome. It is working. So I could set any strobe pattern that I want with a remote. So my favorite pattern is the 3 back and forth. There we go. That is perfect. So now, I guess the question is the siren gonna work? Ready? Awesome. All right, so we got everything wired up and working. I gotta get this switch in here and we are ready to put this thing back together after hours and hours of wiring. Add the little final touches to it, clean up this giant mess that I made from doing all the wiring, and we'll be ready to test it out. So I got the beast back together. It is pretty much done. The only thing I have left to do is install a decal here up on top that says move, and I'm gonna put another decal on here that says squad 55. So that's about it, but this is what it looks like when it's all put back together. Got my fire extinguisher mounted up. This is actually a water gun toy. Got some hooks, got the recovery rope, got some gear here. I got my there's a flashlight. There's a flashlight in here that you can just pull out. There's also a little radio, and yeah, we are pretty much done. We are ready to recover. And of course, the best part of it is this thing lights up like a Christmas tree, and I am loving it.